scorer this season. And it's saved by Conor O'Malley. And of all the people to be denied, it's the man whose goals have brought Galway United to this final.
Good save here by O'Malley. Gets the right way, gets the two hands behind him, pushes it around the right to goal.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Aristocrats Soccer Podcast. We're joined this week by Jon Segarra. Welcome, John.
What's going on, Jake? Thank you for having me, man.
Of course. Great to have you on. So this week we're doing something a little bit different. We're doing a bit of a what if series, and what that means to us is a lot of players have been top youth national team players. They've had college careers that didn't go exactly how they wanted. Maybe there's some drugs, maybe there was some injuries, maybe there's just they've fallen out of love with the game. And there's a lot of different stories out there. And the podcast so far for our loyal viewers, you guys haven't really seen that side of it. You've seen all the pros who have come on and they've had great careers, and they're pretty much they're happy with their success. But this week, John, you texted me a few days ago, right? And
Yep.
You were like, you listened to the podcast as well, and you said, I have a great idea for an episode. I was like, let's hear it. And so this is John's idea, 100% him. Dave or I did not come up with it. But thanks so much for joining it. Thanks for the inspiration. And just for our viewers, why don't you give a little short bio of your playing career?
Yeah, no, I graduated from Sleepy Hollow High School back in 2010. I was all league, all section, all state, last team. I won't even say what team, but I was there. And no, when I graduated Sleepy Hollow High School, I was a forward striker my entire life, man. I played on FC Westchester for a year, and then I went over to Eastern FC. And yeah, man, I graduated as a top 10 recruit in New York State back in 2010. I was top 10 in scoring, man. My senior year, I think I had 20 goals, 17 assists. I was number one in the state in assists.
I just looked that up. That's correct. Your stats are right.
So no, man, I don't know. I go back and I always tell my coach, I always give him shit. I'm like, how the hell was I not how did I not get more awards that year? You know what I mean? And Jason Ruivo, right? So same thing. He finished 26 goals. I think he was second in the state in scoring. And we should have got a lot more accolades. You know what I mean? But it is what it is. Great high school career. Our team finished fourth in the state that year in rankings. We lost in the sectionals, man. And stupid stuff where, conversations that we're about to have, that's the mentality that I had in high school. It wasn't where it should have been. I wasn't mature enough. And thankfully I was still able to go play at a Division I school, and when I got to that Division I level, as you get to a program and you think you're the shit. You think, oh, I was scoring goals left and right. I was doing this. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do the same shit. I'm going to get the same treatment. Right. And when I got to Manhattan, it really woke me up. It woke me up. It wasn't what I expected, in a sense. Let me go back a little bit, right? Because you asked me to short little bio. Graduated top 10 at a high school. Went to Manhattan College. Had a couple other offers: Sacred Heart, Quinnipiac, Central Connecticut State. But yeah, no, man. You want me to keep going or how?
No. So that after you get to Manhattan, right?
Yeah.
Those first few days, you're a top recruit in high school. You played at a top club team. You played for a good high school. You had awards. You had success, and then you get to Manhattan, where you're surrounded by other players who had similar success in high school.
Right.
So what were those first maybe couple weeks in preseason? And preseason is a grind in college soccer because it's 2 weeks of just fitness. So what was that like for you? And kind of I'm sure it opened your eyes, and you're like, wait a minute, maybe I'm not as good as I thought it was.
So in high school, right, coming out of high school, I tried to be best top shape, right? Stay away from all those, the partying and whatnot. And my senior year I started partying. I started going out. And when I got to that summer going to college, I was like, I gotta get my shit together. So I went into preseason actually one of the fittest dudes. I was running 6 miles in 38 to 40 minutes at the time. And all our requirements that we had to meet, I met them all. started off the season, right? First 2 weeks preseason, killed it. Went into the season. I wasn't starting, but I was I came off the bench for the couple first games of the season. And the turning point, man, and I remember like it was yesterday, turning point was not being on the roster for a West Coast trip. And just the mentality, it just, instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to prove to my coach that I'm going to be better, I'm going to do more, I'm going to fucking put in the work, I'm going to put in the grind. It was the complete opposite. Lost focus. And I was like, wow, like I'm going to make him regret this, thinking I'm the best player on the team. You know what I mean? But I wasn't. And it's just things like that, man, where, just the mentality of coming into a D1 program. It doesn't matter where you're playing at, any D1 program, it's accomplishment to even be there, right? And it was easier for me to quit and just give it all up at the time instead of working my ass off.
Yeah. I mean, being at Binghamton, I've seen plenty of players that go through that crossroads. I was lucky enough as a freshman where I played every game, but I think at least 7 or 8 of the freshmen didn't play or maybe only played sparingly. So you come to that crossroad where you're like, who am I going to be? Am I going to be the guy that's going to put my head down and work hard? Or am I going to be the guy that says, screw you, coach, I'm better than this. And I'm going to go transfer, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I think that's such an important point in a young man's life or young woman's life, whoever it is, because it applies to real life as well. Because when you get to the real world, things aren't always going to come easy. So it's very important to learn those lessons now. And I think, unfortunately for you, you didn't necessarily learn that lesson in time for your soccer career. But you were able to, as we'll get on to later in the podcast, you've achieved a lot of success in the business world. So I think you did learn your lesson. Is there anything maybe you'd say outside of what you already mentioned to a young player who's in a similar position to you, just get into a new school? What advice would you give an incoming freshman? Just give it all, man. Don't give up. Even if you're not getting the burn in the beginning, just don't give up. With me, it was, I played the first couple games and then I just, didn't go on that trip. And then I remember the rest of that season, I was just, going to practice. I was just half-assing it. My coach at the time, like it really messed with me mentally. I was weak. I wasn't ready to hear that, oh, you're not good enough to be playing right now or any of that stuff. So instead of working harder, like that's my thing I tell kids, I'm from Sleepy Hollow, like I mentioned earlier, and I still do a lot of work with the high school program, the kids in the surrounding towns. And I tell them all the time, man, follow your dreams. Don't let anybody tell you can't do it. You got to that point for a reason. You're good enough, right? Now it's just a mental battle. It's like, what can you do? What are you doing to yourself? Are you pushing yourself to your limits? Are you? I wasn't. I was partying, I was drinking, I was going to bars before games, and so forth. And, it just led to injuries, led to more time the following season not playing at all because I was hurt, got, hurt in the spring seasons because I didn't take a spring season seriously. So just all those things, it really, every single day that you're in that Division I college program, take advantage. It doesn't matter if it's D1, D2, D3, you're still playing the game. You got something to prove. Obviously you love the game if you get to that point and you're good enough to be there, right? So it's just a matter of pushing yourself to your limit, never giving up, man, never giving up. And, things aren't going to always go our way. There's always going to be a player out there that's better than you. And you just got to accept that and work hard on that player. That phrase, talent beats hard work hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work, and that's, man, it's so true. It's so true, man. There's players out there that they're not the most talented, but they work their ass off and they've gotten far in life, man. Yeah. I mean, I think if you ask pretty much any professional coach, maybe not at the highest levels, not the Premier League, but at my level, USL Championship, League of Ireland, where I played before as well, NASL, they will take a guy that works hard and will look after himself, eat right, do all the injury, like the prehab before training. They'll take a guy over the flashy guy who can beat someone dribble and stick the ball top corner. And I mean, I've been training with some Marist kids actually this off season, and there's a few of them. And I mean, like when they train with me, like, I'm probably a better player, but it's not by a crazy amount. But it's just a lot of their mentalities. I mean, they're 21 years old, so they have time to mature, but their mentalities just aren't right where they should be. And that's where I think I am just so mentally strong. And that's kind of allowed me to have the career that I've had, not because I'm an amazing gifted player, just because my mentality is, all right, if I fail today, then I'll fix it tomorrow. And if I
Right.
fail tomorrow, then I'll fix it the day after. And I'm not going to give up and just say, I'm just not good enough.
Right.
But so after that point, after your freshman year, sophomore year, you had those injuries. Did you kind of step away from the game after that?
Yeah, sophomore year, spring semester, it's really when I, aside from the whole soccer stuff, I was just going through a lot of personal stuff, and everything just kept weighing on me. And like I said, instead of me being stronger and pushing myself, it was easier for me to give up and feel bad for myself. And it's not only me; it happened to a bunch of players, even on the team. Where you get mentally drained by a coach if you're just not performing well and constantly getting called out. Some people just can't take it, and they can't take the criticism. It happens to so many people, and they just fall out of touch with the game. They fall out of love with the game. And, so that my junior year, my sophomore spring semester, terrible grades, man. I had like a 2.1 GPA, something like that. Coach was like, listen, you're not even taking it serious. Why am I even going to have you on the team? So junior year, he had me just like on the team just to have me there. But I didn't even dress up anymore. I wasn't, I was just there to be there because he I don't know, he probably felt bad for me. Right. And then senior year was, I walked away from the game completely. I was like, you know what, I'm just going to enjoy my senior year and have fun with it. But man, there's not one day that I don't regret not taking it serious. I just played in the semifinal on Sunday where I caught myself slipping again, man. And it's shits and giggles, these leagues, but I'm a competitive ass person. I still played 100%.
You never lose that. Even if you're 60, you're too competitive.
Exactly.
Then you tear your knee or you Achilles or something because you don't realize that your body can't do it anymore.
Exactly. And I caught myself slipping this weekend where, we were in the semifinal game. We tied it up with 3-3. And then these guys scored right after we scored. It's 4-3 with like 3 minutes left. And then like the next day I realized, I was like, shit, I gave up with 3 minutes left. Like, why did I do that? Like, why did I mentally took myself out of the game for 3 minutes, and just shit like that. Well, the next morning I was like, wow, like I got to wake up, for now, for like work stuff. It's like, if I'm not up at 5, 6 in the morning and I'm not out doing someone on the West Coast, what am I really doing? So it's just always good to just catch yourself slipping sometimes and, understand that shit, I'm not pushing myself to where I need to be. And, just whether it's athletics, sports, or just the real world, so we always need that reality check.
Yeah. I think you're a great example of someone how important sports is in terms of the life lessons. You don't get them anywhere else, really, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And you've taken those lessons that you've learned the hard way, unfortunately, but in the sports world, and you've now transitioned into kind of being a businessman, and you've got the clothing brand you want to sell to the YouTube viewers.
Yes,
you got the Underdog New York clothing brand. That's how we reconnected. And so like, what else are you doing, and how do you apply the lessons that you learned into your day-to-day life now?
Yeah, no, man. So when I graduated college back in 2014, I went through a really dark phase, man, where 2 or 3 years I was just, going out, spending all my money. I was working, spending my money. And like my parents be like, you're not going to go anywhere in life. Like, you keep doing this, you're just going to drown yourself into a worse place, and it's just going to only get worse. And I went through something really, really difficult when I was like 24 that completely changed my life. And I woke up the next morning and I was, you know what, my life needs to change. And, I remember I got an entry-level job at Coca-Cola at the time. And I busted my ass for 2 years, man. I busted my ass, top 5, top 3, constantly on like sales numbers, rankings, all that stuff, to the point where like the way I accelerated within the Coca-Cola world, it's insane. It's kind of unheard of, man. I'm 28, and my boss is 50, and everyone at my level right now is in like their late 30s, 40s. So I'm the youngest guy doing it, man. And I'm still number one on every single report. Last year I won one of a kind award, best in my division. So, what woke me up was I didn't make it in the soccer world for a reason. I didn't push myself to the limits. I didn't challenge myself enough, and I gave up way too easily. So now in like the business world, I've been working with Coca-Cola for 5 years now, and working on multiple different brands, Zico, Honest Tea, Powerade, Core Power. Right now I'm on the Fairlife Division team. And, for me, it's like, if I'm not number one on every single report that comes out, then I don't feel good enough. And that's the mentality I have. The last 2 years, I've just been driven. I mean, I want to succeed. I got the best news of my life yesterday. So just, man, things have just been getting better, and I've been applying myself 110 times more. And I wish, like, I was talking to my fiance about it. I was like, shit, like, I wish I had this mentality when I was in college. Like, I'm not giving up. I'm not stopping. Like, nobody's getting in front of me anymore. Like, you could tell me I'm not going to succeed. I'm going to fail. I'm going to do this. And like, it's just going to go in through one ear and go out the other. I wish I had this mentality when I was 18 and all throughout college, because I would have been somebody. I would have done something. I would have kept playing soccer possibly. But it's my message to everyone who's in my shoes, who did play sports. Doesn't matter what sport it is, but we there's so many of us that have gone through that, where we fell out of the game, and you don't know what you're gonna do with your life. There's more out there. It's just a matter of you pushing yourself and getting to where you want to get to. Like, it's not just gonna happen. No one's gonna come knocking on your door and say, "Here, this is for you." Yeah. You got to work your ass off, man. It doesn't matter what it is: marketing, sales, finance, accounting. Whatever you're into, there's something out there for all of us, man.
100%. Do you think that you mentioned that kind of tough night when you're 24? Do you think that you would have been able to kind of have the success you have in today without, I guess we can call it like a wake up call, whatever it was?
Yeah.
Or do you think you still would have figured it out eventually?
No, man. Honestly, I think people have to go through really difficult times to wake up. Some people have to get knocked in the head 1,000 times, man. But for me, thankfully, it was that one wake up call where I realized, I was like, damn, like, this isn't the life I pictured. Like, I'm proving everyone wrong in high school who thought I wasn't going to be somebody. I was going to be a college dropout. I was going to be somebody who's, just working a dead end job, or, picking up garbage, whatever the case may be. I was like, all these people are going to be laughing at me and saying, hey, I told you so. Like, I knew you weren't going to do anything with your life. So I just kept like telling myself that, high school teachers, counselors saying, you're not going to do anything with your life. And, now when I come, I remember even going to college and going back to visit my high school. Like, yeah, I got to college. I'm playing D1 soccer. I'm here. I'm doing it, So now to me, it's a matter of I'm proving everybody wrong and beyond that. Like, sky's is the limit. Where I'm at now, God's been good to me, but there's so much more that I need to achieve. And, I'm just tackling it day by day, man, day by day, setting goals. I have weekly goals. I have monthly goals for myself. Where I want to be money wise, like, next year I want to buy another house. Right. And, just so forth. So, it's just a matter of just setting no limits to yourself, man. And that's, I've installed that in my mind. There's nothing I can't do.
Yeah. That's a brilliant message, because sometimes people have that success, they have that taste, and they get complacent, and it's great. And it's great to see that you're not allowing that to happen, because I mean, if you get complacent, then you're just going to end up falling back down to where you were before. And the whole point of the journey was kind of, it becomes lost.
And then I think, like, so what people need to understand, man, whether it's athletes or people in the real world and in the business world, or whatever you do for a living, it's, we're all going to fail, man. We're going to fail multiple times. We're going to fail 100,000 times, but you can't be scared to fail. And once you get like that installment in your mind where, like, I'm going to do this regardless whether I win or whether I lose. But if I lose, I'm going to learn from that and I'm going to be better. So that it's just, it's literally all mental, man. It's all mental. And, I'm glad I think the way I do now, because if not, I'd still be going down a path that leads to nowhere.
Yeah. Well, it's been great hearing this side of it. I think it's a great perspective for all the kids out there, young adults, even older people that kind of want to change their lives for the better. And especially in our case with our podcast, using sport to change your life for the better, and the lessons that you learn. But before we sign off, our plan is to have a few more stories. So this is going to be a bit of a series, the What If series. Thank you, Jon, for the inspiration. But before we sign off, can you give us, I'm curious too, how did you come up with the clothing brand idea? It's the most comfortable sweatshirts I've worn. You got long sleeve shirts, t-shirts as well. I love all the stuff, and I'm not just saying that. I'm not getting paid to say that for sure.
I'll throw you a hoodie, man. I'll throw you a hoodie.
Okay, maybe I'm getting paid now. But paid with hoodies. But how did you guys come up with the idea? Just out of curiosity.
No. So when I was playing soccer when I was younger, man, I always wanted to do a clothing line, a soccer brand, right? A soccer brand. and have people buy my stuff. That was my dream when I was younger. And as I got older, you know, I always thought about it like, damn, what am I gonna create? What am I gonna do? And last year around the springtime, I told my fiance, like, I still want to do a soccer brand, although I'm not playing anymore. You know, I still want to do something with it. And she got me thinking. She was like, "Why are you just focusing on soccer players / like athletes? Why?" And I was like, you know, that's a good question. And
That's a smart woman,
right? She made me realize, like, you know, you're going for a strict target audience, that there's so much more out there, and there's so much more you want to say to people. And I was, you know what, you're right. You know, a little about my background story, man. I grew up within an immigrant family, right? I didn't have the rights. Not that I didn't have the rights. I didn't have the same privileges, I guess you could say, as many others growing up until I was like 18 years old, man. I couldn't travel. I couldn't go anywhere, tournaments. Like, I couldn't do anything, man. And it sucked. It really held me back. There's so much I was limited to, right? Like, there was so many tournaments I could have gone to in like Europe and all that. And my parents never sent me, man. And, you know, as I got older, you know, and people always saying like, you know, you're not going to make it. Like, you know, there's just all the chance, it's just everything stacked up against you. And last year I was, you know what, underdog. You know, there's so many people in my shoes, and whether it's the same problems that I had, or different challenges, man, everyone goes through different things in life. You know, you go through different obstacles than somebody else, man, whether it's, you know, doesn't matter ethnicity, religion, whether you're rich, whether you're poor, whatever the case may be, man, we all have shit that we go through, right? And, you know, who's to say that my problems are bigger than your problems? You know, nobody. That's not for me to say it. No, it's not right. And it's so underdog is just more of the meaning behind it is to let everybody know that no matter what obstacle, no matter what challenges that you grew up with, whether it's like health issues or just family problems, or, you know, one of my buddies, Nick Sirocco, you know, I did a video with him, and, you know, he's partially disabled on the left side of his body, and he doesn't speak at all. So he does sign language. And, you know, he was able to graduate from college and go on and work for some companies and do some marketing for them. So, you know, just don't limit yourself, man. Like, don't feel sorry for yourself either. Everyone goes through so much in their life, and that nobody knows about. And you just got to keep pushing forward, man. Put your head down and keep working. Just have that underdog mentality. And that's really how the brand, you know, started. And it, you know, I spoke about it to my buddies, and they're like, dude, you have to do this. You have to. And man, I haven't it's just been positive feedback since last year, since last May, since we launched. Positive feedback. People love the brand. I'm getting guys like you, you know, football players, and just, you know, different types of athletes, or just comedians. Like, you know, the sky's is the limit, where people are coming at me like, yeah, man, I'm an underdog too. And it's like, yeah, dude, we're all underdogs, man. We all have faced some type of hardship in our lives. And, you know, just don't feel sorry for yourself, man. Just put your head down and work for what you want. That's really the message.
Yeah, I definitely think it's something anybody can relate to, whether even if you're Jordan or LeBron or Brady, like, or Ronaldo or Messi, like, even those guys, like right now, Messi and Ronaldo, they're kind of like, people are saying maybe they're getting hit in the end of the road. So right now they're underdog. And it's something that even they could, I'm not, they're not going to buy your brand, but it's a message they can relate to. And I think that's why I think your fiance is a smart woman to have to include everyone in, and to make everybody feel like, yeah, I can relate to that. Right. That hoodie, that t-shirt, whatever, and that message.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, it's been great having you on. Thanks so much for joining us. Well, we might have to do some more episodes. I think the people will like you, so we might have to bring you back on at some point.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that.
But thank you so much. I'm the athlete, the advocate, and the analyst are not here. And we are the Aristocrats. All right, welcome to part 2, everyone. I'm joined this time by Pat Ryan, and Pat is someone that I respected a lot growing up as a player. We played on ODP teams, we played on club teams together, both and as opponents. And he was someone that I always compared myself to, as he was a very good player. So welcome, Pat.
Thanks, Jake. Good to be here.
So Pat, you had a good career, a very good youth career. So why don't you just tell the followers a little bit about your playing career, where you played, how you did, and all that stuff.
Okay, so I grew up in upstate New York, good old upstate New York, and Jake knows how good upstate New York is. I played for the Blackwatch. I played for Blackwatch Soccer Club. I did play for, my town teams when I was younger, but the first real competitive club, premier level club I played for was Blackwatch Soccer Club. I went there when I was about 15. Jake spoke of his East Fishkill days. I did train with East Fishkill a few times. I tried a bunch of different teams because, as you know, the soccer in upstate New York isn't that competitive. So after Blackwatch, I went off to Virginia Tech for my freshman year, got hurt, lost my scholarship, and at the last second, got a phone call from the University of Buffalo. I finished my last 3 years there. Because at Virginia Tech, I played in just enough games that I wasn't eligible to redshirt with the injury. So that stunk, but I ended up going to University of Buffalo, finished out my college career there, also Division I. And then I was going from combine to combine. I was chasing my childhood dream of playing professionally. I signed a 3-year contract with a very low on the totem pole American professional soccer team called Western Mass Professional Soccer Club in the American Soccer League, which I don't even know if it's still around to this day. That was my first professional contract, and shortly thereafter, I had another injury, and my playing career ended just like that.
Yeah. Well, you did get to kind of fulfill that dream in a sense, which is good, but it's always tough when injuries and setbacks hit you. So let's rewind a little bit and let's talk about you're a big top prospect out of high school, and you go to a big school like Virginia Tech. They're in the ACC. And what was that experience like as a freshman, and then obviously leaving the school after a year?
So it was great. The social life was great. Did well academically. I remember my coach saying to me, like, you did well in all the areas we thought you weren't going to do well, and then when it came to soccer, where we thought you were going to kill it, you did not. And which is true, but I had my reasons for that. I got hurt very early in the season. I started the first game at UMBC, University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Had an assist. Had an assist on our only goal, and next day we're doing max squats for some odd reason. I told Jake before this I could really go in on the coaching staff at Tech if I felt like it, but I'm gonna hold back. So we're doing max squats. I hit the box. My butt hit the box. I started coming back up for the squat to finish it, and I just felt everything tear in my groin. So I had a sports hernia for the whole season. And I played in, I didn't, so I'm basically playing on one leg. I had never been hurt before. I've never really even had faced adversity, to really be honest. It had all been pretty much cake for me up until that point. Everybody loving on me, everybody telling me how far I'm going to go, everybody telling me I keep getting better the older I get, and you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And it got to my head, and this injury also got to my head because they started telling me the opposite, like, you're garbage, you're trash, you should be able to play through this injury, you're not tough enough, you're not this, you're not that. So I played. They would wrap me up with an ace bandage, an entire ace bandage, every single practice, every single game. They would make me pop 2 800 milligram ibuprofen before every practice, every game. I think the game they even gave me 4. and like half a roll of tape around that groin just to keep it stabilized. And I still felt all the pain. The pain was still a 10 out of 10. So I was basically playing on one leg for that season, and the other colleges across the country that we played against saw me play like not well, and saw us in spring games, stuff like that, and I was not anywhere close to my best, so that hurt my chances to go really anywhere that I wanted to after that.
Yeah. So after that season, you ended up getting hernia surgery, correct?
Yeah, so the season finished, and they finally said, okay, well now that we've used you for the season and made you look terrible, we're gonna let you get checked out by a surgeon, an orthopedic surgeon, and he did the check for the hernia, and he was like, oh yeah, you got a major inguinal hernia, also known as a sports hernia, where I tore the outside, but nothing came out. That's more of like the old man's hernia that you'll hear about. But I was in such good shape. I was in the best shape of my life, to be honest. Like unreadable body fat, just crazy fitness that we did there. And so I was, at least that didn't happen, but it was still a major blow. And yeah, I don't know. Did you want me to talk about what we talked about before, or?
Yeah, go for it. Share.
So I'll just mention after that, I was prescribed a lot of pain medication. This is back, you got to remember, this is back in 2009 at this point. So it was very easy to get pain pills, opiates. I'm sure everybody listening to this hopefully knows about the opioid epidemic, and if they don't, this will give them a little insight into it. I got hooked on Percocet, and I took all of my Percocet, and I bought all my teammates Percocet, and I took all of his Percocet in a very short amount of time. And I chased that dragon for a while, for years and years and years, until recently. So that's just kind of like a little setup. I'll leave it there. But that was it. I got the hernia surgery, and I came back. They stripped the rug from out under my feet. They took the scholarship out, and left me just standing in the wind. So
yeah, I mean, it's thank you for sharing that. I mean, I know it's obviously a tough topic to talk about, but it's something that the kids that are going through these same things, they're going to schools, they have to understand what the situation is, because a lot of these coaches, they're in it because it's their job, and for they look at the players as their employees, and even though it's an amateur sport, it's not always treated like that, and a lot of times players are put in shit situations, so you have to know like how to look after yourself, more or less. And I'm sure if you had the opportunity to do this again, you probably would, just once you felt the injury you probably wouldn't even done the max squat to begin with. But if you did the max squat, you would have just said, no, don't feel right, I'm pulling myself out. And you see it all the time. Like I see it on a professional level, like there's guys who will play through anything, but then there's guys who will say, no, my body doesn't feel right, I might hurt myself worse, I might look bad by going on the field, and then just say, no, I'm done. And I think that's honestly, to an extent, that's the right way to handle it. But just from your perspective, how do you think you would have handled it differently, or what advice would you give to, say, a college freshman just coming in, going, let's say, to Virginia Tech, Clemson, something like that?
Yeah, it would be, I definitely would have done some of the things you said. Hindsight is 2020, and I always say I have no regrets. But I definitely would have I have no regrets, but I definitely would have handled things a lot differently. A lot of situations in my life, this being one of them. If I had the chance, the coach that I was going there for he resigned right before he was about to get fired for illegal recruiting out of Germany and Ghana. And so I was left with the assistant coach, who I didn't know that well. He was the initial one to recruit me, but I didn't know him that well. He happened to be a lot different than what I went there for. And that was just bad luck. There was no way I was changing where I was going 2 weeks before preseason. But I would urge players, if they're caught in a situation like that, to be very cognizant of the environment that they're walking into, and whether they feel safe there. Because like Jake said, it's a business. It is a business. Once you get to that level, once you're in the ACC, once you're in, you're playing for college cups and stuff like that, it's absolutely a business, and you're not looked at as a person. You're looked at as an asset or a liability. I would have definitely taken myself out. I would have taken the year. After that, I probably would have done the max spot because I was still trying to prove myself. But I definitely, after I felt that, I definitely would have. I mean, maybe not right away, but God, after like the third day of just not even being able to run correctly, I really wish I didn't put my feet in line for people that could care less about me. So that's really what it came down to.
Oh, well, it's a valuable lesson, and I hope whoever's listening to this is taking it and gets to apply it to their everyday life, because I think that's the point of this podcast. I don't know if you've ever listened to it, Pat, but the point of the podcast is just kind of learn through people's experiences, and your experiences are very unique, and they're very different than a lot of our guests we normally do, because we normally do like pros or like guys or girls who've had long careers. And it's a very different perspective, but I think your perspective is much more relatable than a lot of the stories, because there's so many players out there that have gone through things that you've gone through. And it's great to see you as someone, we don't speak regularly now, but when we were kids, we knew each other very well. We roomed together, I think, at ODP camps and all that different stuff. Your mom was very well as well. So it's great to see you now. Like, you've kind of come out the other side of this whole process. It is a big process, and hopefully you're better for it. And but just for the viewers, before we kind of wrap up a little bit, like, what are your plans for the future? Like, what are your goals? How do you see things going for yourself?
I've taken, I would say, excuse me, I would say, I mean, I still had Jake mentioned that, some of the other players or ex-players that he interviewed lost the love for the game. And I saw that kind of in like one of our ex-teammates, the other center mid that played with us, with David McBain. As just being somebody that grew up near him and then saw him develop. He was very, very good. I felt like he burned out. I would try to steer away from the burning out. I would say play as many sports as you possibly can. Don't start focusing on solely soccer at too young of an age. It's never too early to practice your skills, but for me, the lessons I've learned is that you gotta love the game. You gotta still have fun. If you're not having fun, and this is at any level, because I've played at pretty much, not all. I mean, I haven't played at a high level, but all the levels leading up to that. If I wasn't having fun, like, it wasn't even worth it. It wasn't worth being out on the field. Like, you should be enjoying the game. The beautiful game, and studying it and preparing, and just enjoying watching it, enjoying playing it, enjoying coaching it. That's what I'm doing now. I coach here and there. I'm wearing my St. Rose sweatshirt right now. I coached Division II men's soccer at one point while I was training to sign my first contract. But don't do too much. I would say don't do too much and burn yourself out. Also, I would say don't quit like I did. I had a lot of injuries, and that's my usual go-to for why my career ended when it did so early, but that I was injury prone. But I could have kept playing. I could have found another team. I could have gotten another contract if I really wanted to. So don't give up. If you want to play. There's always somewhere to play. And Jake knows that. So yeah, just love the game, let the game love you back. And I still love soccer. It's not what I'm doing anymore. It's not at all what I do for a career, but I'm just out here trying to help people at this point now, and just stay connected to the game on the side because it's still a huge part of my heart. So.
Yeah, I think you should get involved in the men's league games. I think you would tear it up there.
Over 30 now.
Yeah, 30. the AFRAMS indoor indoor tournaments. Well, thank you so much, Pat. This is awesome, and I really respect you coming on, and because it's not an easy topic, and you shared it, and the lessons that you're teaching the kids and the young players they're invaluable to them. So thank you so much. If you guys want, I think this is just going to keep flowing. So we're going to have a part 3 after that, after Pat. So you guys keep listening on until then. I'll see you. Welcome to part 3, everyone, of the What If series. I'm joined this episode by the legend himself, a former teammate of mine with the East Fishkill Thunder, the legendary youth team. So John Bryant, welcome to the podcast.
Hey Jake, how's it going?
I'm doing great. We were just kind of catching up a bit. We were good friends back in our heyday, but we talk sparingly now. But it's always great to catch up and hear how you're doing. But just for the viewers, do you want to just give a brief background to your playing career, how we know each other a bit, and all that good stuff?
Yeah, totally. So yeah, I grew up in Montgomery, New York, like on the other side of the river from you. I think I joined the Thunder when I was like 12 or 13. I think it was U13 at that point, which is funny to think about because at that point it already felt like everybody knew each other. Like it had been around for a while. Like the team, for being like a small town team or whatever, it lasted for forever. It was like U8 through U19. So I remember like getting into a group that already seemed like it had a pretty solidified bond. But yeah, I joined the Thunder like when I was 13 after getting onto an ODP team. So it was basically like that's kind of like catapulted everything, like being on a state team then. And then pretty much like the Thunder became my life from like, I'd say like age 13 through age 18. I mean, by the time
same for sure.
Yeah. By the time I graduated high school, I think we were practicing like 5 days a week. It was pretty nuts. It was like 4 or 5 days a week. We'd meet up at whatever field there was. And then like, I just like pretty much drive over to the other side of the river and play. And yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, it was pretty much what it was like Region 1 Premier League at that point. And it was State Cup was still a big deal. And I think we finally won it our senior year, which was pretty dope. And by that time, it was an interesting time too, right? Like the youth soccer landscape, because like academy was starting up, right? So I remember it was kind of like me, you, and a couple people were having like a conversation about whether we wanted to go play academy, like when it was happening, because like FC Westchester was a team that had like a bunch of good players. Shout out Tommy Mack. Well, I haven't talked to him in years, but
New England Revolution, Tommy Mack. Yep.
New England Revolution. Yeah. Is he playing? Is that who he's playing for right now?
Yeah, he's with New England now.
That's cool. I would totally. He just scored like so many screamers. Like these, like had like 5 or 6 like awesome goals. So I'd like pull them up in the middle of a tutoring session sometimes and just be like, yo, check out this person I used to play with, like upper 90 from 30.
Yeah, he still does it in MLS. It's crazy. He does that where he like He gets the ball from 25 yards out and he just whips it to the top corner. Like no backlift. Like few players in the world can do what he does. But those are the only goals he scores. He's wild. But
it's pretty deceptive too. Like he's deceptively athletic and deceptive, and like strikes deceptively like great ball in the sense that like because he just like he's so like I don't know, he's just like precise, and he doesn't like he has no like wasted movements. I don't know. I always found that like he was like the most like a really good, really deliberate player. But yeah, so basically like we were trying to figure out if we want to switch to academy or not. And then I think we pretty much decided like, nah, we'll just stay on the Thunder. And then we had some more players join us. So by our senior year, we were stacked, and we pretty much just like ran through State Cup. And then this picture in the background no, that's the Region 1, right?
Yeah, this is for the YouTube viewers. You can have a look. You can see baby John Bryant in the middle.
There's baby me. Okay. 5'9" goalkeeper to the back right there.
Yeah, but that picture was at regionals. So we won State Cup and then we went to regionals, and the regionals we were like, there's no chance for doing well. I mean, all the teams we played in that Region 1 Premier League we had lost to, and then we go to this Premier like the championships, the Region 1 championships, and we beat them all. We fought 5 in a row, and then we ended up going to nationals. But it's a wild ride.
It was wild because we did play like. Am I allowed to curse on this podcast?
Oh, of course.
Okay, because we played like dog shit in Region 1 Premier League. Like we were bad, and I remember it like became a joke. Like, all right, whatever. Like, save it for State Cup. Like we're 1-4-1 losing. We were so bad, and yeah, we really did. We saved it for State Cup, and then we got to regionals. I remember we beat like Spirit. We got to the semis and played Spirit United and beat them. And we played well. That was like we played really well. I remember that game was like 2-0.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's all coming.
You
back
remember getting pissed at halftime?
Did I get pissed?
Because we were up 2-0 at halftime. Eddie was our coach. He's like, we're doing great. Well done, everybody. And you were like, no, we're not done yet. This game's not like one of those. Like
I think I do remember that now that you mention it. Yeah. Because they had like 3 or 4 like pretty good strikes that game from distance. So they were hitting the ball from. So I think that's where that came from. Is I just remember like, because I think at that point, who were like Ian and Joe? Is that
Joe Golo? Yeah.
Yeah, Ian and Joe were our center backs, and I think that they played extremely well. So I don't even know I really called them out right then, but I just remember that like they were striking the ball well from distance. So I just felt like I didn't want that to go against us. But yeah, so we beat them, and then we kind of had that kind of legendary game against PDA. Which I don't
remember anything about any penalty saves. No, I can't quite recall.
That's probably one of the highlights of that's probably the highlight of like my like youth soccer career, saving that. Which was funny too, because he had like, this is a ridiculous anecdote, but when I was 12, I remember we played them. Yeah, like he played. I think that the guy who struck that he played for the South Brunswick Blaze.
Yes, I remember. So just to cut in, so I remember we need to do a podcast just on the East Fishkill Thunder.
We really should, because
we'll bring you back on that. I actually joked with my dad that we should do an episode, and he was like, I'd be interested, but I don't know.
Yeah,
but anyway, so this guy's name was Brandon. His nickname was Boots, and Brendan Sebastian. He played at Rider University, and when we were 12, he was 6'2". And when we were 18, he was still 6'2".
He had actually shrunk an inch. He was now 6'1". No, he was still 6'2". But yeah, no, I remember when we were 12, like he like struck a ball, and I don't think this is what happened, but I guess I ducked. Maybe I ducked, and like I remember just getting like completely like pretty much just like shit on by the entire team for being like, how do you duck? You're a goalie. Like, you're like, what are you doing? And I remember like being like, at that point I was like 5'2", and this dude was like 6'2". So it was just like straight up impulse. And like he didn't score the goal. Thankfully, it like went over the bar, but I'm pretty sure I did duck as a result of Boots' strike from like 10 yards out or something when we were young. And then he stepped up for the penalty, and then kind of coming full circle, I was able to like, just like, I don't know, those things are so random. You just like guess the right side. I wasn't big enough to hold my ground and just be like, oh, react, like, no, I was like doing that Nick Raimondo, I have to guess a side and read their movement sort of thing. That's what had to happen. So yeah, he looked like he was going to put it left. So dove left, got lucky, and then we won 1-0, and then that was awesome. That was like truly great. Can't say Nationals was as great. Can't say Nationals was as good an experience. God, man, we had Javin in the first game, lost 3-1. Should have won that or tied. I think we played well that game.
Yeah.
But then we got crushed by Discovery. Yeah.
We did win the third game though against.
We played well the third game. Yeah.
West Side Metros from Portland. So just the names that we played against in the Nationals was wild though. Like, because we were a small town team, like Bad News Bears, like literally that's who we were. Never won state cup before that year. We were always like pretty good, but like never won state cup. And we're playing against guys. Enzo Martinez played in MLS for a few seasons, still playing in USL Championship. Played against Danny Mwanga. He's the number 1 pick in MLS draft. Eric Hurtado, who's played now probably 9 years in MLS.
Yeah.
Alex Martinez, Enzo's brother, who's still in MLS. Then we played against several other guys who had played for like Charleston Battery and USL Championship. Like, and this is to bring it all like full circle and compare it to us. You went to Harvard. Me and Kevin Bunce went to Binghamton. And I'm not taking away from any other players, but that's all we had in terms of Division I players. The rest of the guys went Division III. There was a 4 of them, right? They went to Oneonta, played in the Final Four. Like, they were good players, but we were comparing ourselves to the best in the country. These guys were going to play in MLS and all this sort of stuff, and we were this kind of small town club. So it was wild. It was
wild.
Yeah, one of my favorite memories playing for sure.
Absolutely, probably my favorite memory because college was like, college career didn't quite work out as hoped. So it was definitely I think it probably was my favorite memory of soccer. And it was, I think it was interesting too, though, because I think you mentioned those 4 guys that went to Oneonta. I think it was deceptive. I keep on using this word deceptive, but I think they always were D1 players in my brain. Like Fortier, Dan, like Jeff and Ian, they were always D1 players in my brain. So when they took, I don't think Oneonta had ever been to like the Final Four, right? When they took them there, by the way, like Jeff Christian scored a screamer. I don't know if you ever saw that goal.
Scored I saw it. Yes.
Freaking screamer. That was dope. None of that shocked me because I was like, obviously like kudos to them. I don't mean to take anything away, but it's like, I was like, yeah, they're like amazing players. I'm not surprised that they like took that program to new heights because they were just always, I never really like, so for example, when we played West Side Metros, like, it's funny, I never really thought when we stepped on the field with them that we didn't have like enough D1 players going up against them, even though in retrospect, like, we didn't, right? And like, I think Discovery's that second team was funny because even though they only had like Enzo, I think went to UNC, right? But then their entire team had like College of Charleston. Like, their entire team was like 6 or 7 people who went on to start at College of Charleston. So it was like, they still had like a bunch of D1 players. So yeah,
they also actually had Sebastian Velasquez, who I didn't mention. He played in MLS. He actually missed a penalty in the final of MLS Cup. They were about to win at Salt Lake. But that was another. Right? Yeah, he was another big player. But yeah, you're right. Most of the players were like mid-major Division I players. So it wasn't. Yeah. They were not miles better than us on that day. They certainly were, but.
I'm not even going to say the score of the second game. If someone wants to do a real deep dive into USU soccer championship results histories, they can find it. But I'm not even going to say that score. That was brutal. But yeah, so then, no, go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was just going to transition now. So like, we come off this, and during that same time period, or around the same time period, you had already committed to Harvard, but what kind of went into that decision, and then kind of go into, obviously, what was that college experience like for you?
For sure. For me, it was like the dream. That was the dream to play there, to be honest. Like, I remember, like, because we had a really good sophomore season. I think we made state come final that year. And so that's, I think, when I started to like reach out to coaches. And I think I was starting to get like pretty good traction. I kind of knew I wanted to, if I was lucky enough to like apply to like an Ivy League school and play there. That was kind of, I guess that was at that point what I was setting my sights on. And then also some like NESCAC D3 schools. So like Williams, Amherst, places like that. but then junior year came around. I think we kind of underachieved. So like by that point, like we went to a bunch of college showcases. I got a red card at the Disney Soccer Showcase. I went all the way to Florida to play Match Fit, who we had played like 4 times already in Jersey, and then got a red card. And
yeah, do you remember the third game we played? I forgot who we played the third game, but they didn't let you play, and you were only keeper at that time.
Oh, I remember this.
And that was the only game. That was the only game we played on like Disney grounds. Like the other first 2 games were off campus, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And remember my dad, who was the assistant coach, he's going to them like before, like, come on, it's a showcase. We're already out. Like, we're not going to make the final. Can you just let our keeper play? And like, no, we can't. We're like, we have coaches coming. No, we can't. We go and we have like Ian DeRuiter playing goalie, and he's getting chipped from 35 yards out. We lose 5-0. And that was honestly, that was a funny moment for me too, because Colgate were really interested in me.
Oh,
and
really?
They were at that game.
Oh no.
I mean, it's worked out. Like,
it's fine.
I don't care now, but it's just funny.
It's not that big a deal.
I remember going to their campus like after that game, and they were talking about it, and I was like, we didn't have a goalie guy. Like, relax.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, totally. Dude, DeRuiter, man, tough day. I love that guy. I remember because we pulled him after the first 3, right? No, because he played well in the second game. That was the thing. Like, I got sent off, and like I think we were already at that point down 2-0, which stunk because we had beaten them so many times before. We were just playing bad. And then he comes in. I think he made like a few good saves. So I think I remember before the third game, us kind of being like a little optimistic, like, nah, this will be all right. But then, inside 20 minutes, he got like nutmeg twice and chipped from 30. And then he sits down on the pitch next to me. And I will never forget this. He just looked at me and was like, "Oof, not my day, man." Not my day. And I was like, yeah, understatement of the century.
And actually, Lucas Ware was not to make you feel any worse, but Hartford were at that game for Lucas. Hartford was in
it for everyone. Goddamn, I ruined it for everyone.
That
red card was so questionable, though, dude. That red card was.
It was never a red card. The guy's going like, it's one of those where the guy's going to the corner flag.
Yeah,
and he sends you off because you take him out, I guess, but like
he milked it. He did like a full front flip somersault, grabbed the ankle sort of thing. That was crazy.
Completely unnecessary.
Completely unnecessary. But yeah, so like coming out of junior year, like I actually think I didn't really have like a lot of like as much traction as I would have liked. But then I remember the one like bright spot out of junior year was that I had like contacted Jamie Clark at that time, the coach of Harvard, and I had said that we would be at this tiny little soccer showcase in like Massachusetts. And like he showed up, we played well for like, we played all right that year at times, and we played well. And I remember he really loved you. He was a huge fan of you. He loved the way that you played. I mean, rightfully so. You were the best player on our team. And like, so I remember it was like he, at first, like our conversations were like, he was interested in me, but he also asked about you at the same time. So it was like this funny dynamic where I was like, yeah, I mean, that would be amazing. Me and Keegan both going to play there. That would be friggin' dope. But yeah, like, and then I think like eventually, like there was another game in October, I think, of our senior year where the assistant coach at that time came and watched me play. And I happened to play well then too. And then the thing that like put it over the top, which I'll also never forget, was they had me come on an unofficial, and like I got to play with the people who hadn't really played in the game before. And it's probably the best I've ever, like one of the best, like some of the best soccer I ever played in my life. It was pretty nuts. It was just like a little scrimmage on like a 6-a-side field, I don't know. I just like, I had a really good day that day. Like for whatever reason, that was I think, because then you talk to the guys on the team, and the guys on the team are like, yeah, let's get them to come play here. And what's funny is the other goalie who they ended up recruiting my same year, it's like literally the opposite keeper. It's like me, and then this dude who's like 6'7", like Brett Conrad, like was like, I was like play out of the back with my feet. Conrad was like, never passed to me, like sorry, like it was like the exact, like can claim every high ball in the world, and me be like, okay, central defenders, like clear it away, like literally the exact opposite. So yeah, we both got recruited to play there, and it was kind of like a no-brainer at that point. I wanted to play there super bad, and so pretty much anything else that but since, here's another interesting thing, since I got recruited late they couldn't give me a likely letter. So pretty much it was this interesting scenario where there were other schools that were like, you can come play here, but or Harvard was like essentially like, come, we're going to write a note in your application, and the note in this application is going to say, yeah, I don't know, I wasn't crazy about it, but it was a chance I was willing to take. It was like, the note in this application is going to say, he will be on the team if admitted, right? And so I because I was enamored by it, I was like, yeah, let's definitely do this. And so I didn't really find out, whereas everybody else was recruited and like knew where they were going. I didn't know till like April, truly, of like my senior year. And during that time, I was still staying in touch with like the coach at Cornell and like other places, because depending on where like I was lucky enough to get admitted, then I would try and play there. But it worked out with Harvard, and then I played there, and it was really, I mean, I loved the experience. I made some of my best friends, and I remember like being kind of nervous when I first got there, like depending on like kind of like what the level was like. Because I remember Andre Akpan, who like played in the MLS for a little bit of time, he was on the team. We had another guy my freshman year, this guy named Kwaku Neomeke. I think I pronounced his last name right, I hope. He got drafted by the Crew. There were a lot of good players there. And then my roommate, who ended up becoming my roommate, Brian Rogers, was a pretty big time youth player and like won like Ivy League Rookie of the Year that year. And he ended up like getting to play, getting drafted by the Whitecaps like 4 years later. So it was a really good environment, and there were some really good players there. And I never really felt like it was, I don't know, beyond me or anything like that. It's just being a keeper is a funny thing, where I was a freshman, the other keeper was a freshman, and the other keeper in front of us was a sophomore. So it's just like you're your own. There was never really a gap. There was never really like a gap in that hierarchy for me to like exploit it too much. I just had to be better. And the guy who was a sophomore at the time, a good guy named Austin, was he like did enough to always keep the spot. He was a very consistent goalkeeper, in that he wasn't this type of goalkeeper, I don't think, who like would wow you with like a million crazy good saves, but he also wasn't really the type to like ever make a mistake. He was just like solid and consistent, and like good, and like had a good kick, like good distribution. So he pretty much held on to the spot. And then by the time, like, so it was my junior year is when I stopped playing, because by my sophomore year I'd had like it's kind of up in the air, but like third or fourth concussion by that point. So yeah, that's like,
let's back up. So
yeah, sure.
I remember long ago you telling me this story. So let's kind of re-go through it for the viewer.
Yeah.
So your first initial concussion was when?
That was in well, I mean, it's up for, I might have had one when I was younger. Who knows? Like, okay. I really don't know, like undiagnosed or whatever. But my first one was in January of 2010. And it was, we were just playing. It was pretty cool. There was the football field. They put a dome up. So we'd play on like under the dome or in the dome on the football field during the winter. So cold. So cold. Like -5 degrees coming over the water. Like you'd wake up and you'd be tired, and you'd go outside and be like, I'm wide awake. Not even, I'm wide awake now. So we were playing there. I don't know, like, 5-a-side, something like that. Person tried to chip me, and then I like backtracked, and I don't know. Last memory I have is like kind of punching it over the bar, and then when I came down, like I don't know how, but like my defender, I guess, was not thinking I was going to get there, so he kind of just like kicked, like did a jumping kick to try to like clear the ball, and it like his kick like got me on the side of the head. That's what I've been told. I don't really remember. There was probably about 15 minutes, 20 minutes that passed of like the next thing I remember is just like being at the training facility, basically being at like the doctor's office. Mm-hmm. And just sort of being like like kind of like coming to after that. It's like a lot of like amnesia in between being like kicked in the head and being treated at that point. So that was my first one. Another thing that did me in was I had two inside the space of like 3 weeks or like 3.5 weeks, my sophomore spring. And just again, like sort of, incidents and at that point, it was like, that's when I kind of had like a long period of concussive symptoms. It's probably over a year of like pretty legitimate, serious concussive symptoms. And it was honestly just like a learning experience. It was honestly just like a learning experience of like, there's two things I think people don't know about concussions. And one is, I think one people might know, it's like you're much more likely to get one to get another one if you've already had one. So it's just like your brain is that much more susceptible to it. And the second thing is like, you can be showing no symptoms and not necessarily be healed, not necessarily be better, which is the big one, because that doesn't make intuitive sense. Like if you're feeling poorly, you probably ought to be exhibiting some symptom of that, or at least be feeling it internally, right? But with concussions, that's not the case. You can be seeming fine, feeling pretty fine, but be susceptible, but your brain's still swollen essentially, and be susceptible to another injury. So like, that's why I was back on the field at that point, because I felt fine. And then it's really like, so then I ended up taking, well, no, actually I'm going to stay on that for a while. Yeah, no, I'll go ahead. So I ended up taking my junior spring off because I went to school my junior fall. I was trying to figure out if I was going to play or not. It was hard enough to take like 3 classes, to be honest. Like, and I would normally take 4. Sometimes you flirt with
because of the symptoms.
Yeah, because of the symptoms. So, and I had plans that summer, but I ended up just like going home that summer and really doing nothing but like vegging out, like relaxing, trying to like, truly there's not much you can do if you like are experiencing like post-concussive symptoms other than just like don't do much. So I didn't do much for that entire time. And then I went back to campus. I tried a few workouts, but I wasn't really like, I could just tell it was still there. And at that point, you know, I think when you play Division I soccer of any level, you like harbor professional aspirations. So you like want to like keep on trying. And I think even at that time, because I had all these concussions, I had talked to my coach about like switching. This is kind of nuts. I never told you this, but about like maybe switching to the field, because like I always
you did tell me this.
Because I honestly always loved like playing like in the outfield. So I had like talked to my coach about that, and I thought if I could get right, and I had trained with the team, and I really thought I could play. Like there were probably some guys on the team who would say no, that's fine, but I really felt like it would have just been kind of awkward, I think, because people like get recruited and earn a spot, right? And then to get recruited for goalkeeper and then be allowed to play the field would have been like, it shouldn't be a big deal, but I definitely would have had to like take some shit and like prove myself in that respect. But I was pretty up for it.
But backtracking here, this kind of shows for those who weren't lucky enough to watch you play, as I was, it kind of shows the keeper that you were. There's a lot of keepers that if you throw them on the field, it's a fish out of water. And you've trained with us. You played on the field. I remember you scoring a couple goals on the field when we had 2 keepers and switched some occasionally. Yeah. And you were plenty good enough to, if you worked at it, to be a field player at some level. I don't know if at Harvard, but definitely at least at some collegiate level, you were good enough, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But that also shows the kind of keeper that you were good with your feet, and that's the way you wanted to play.
Yeah, that's the way I like to play, for sure. No, I liked because I mean, to be honest, like I wasn't really like the imposing keeper type. I was more the person to sort of like have like be a part of the 11 and try to like dictate that way. I much preferred it that way. But yeah, so I was trying to play the field, and I really felt like I could give it a go. But it just, the symptoms never really got better, and I kind of was like I was just thinking about my life at that point, if I'm being honest. And I'm thinking about like post-soccer life. And I guess like a little part of me was like, how good could I actually be if I like played the field? And I was like, maybe an outside shot if I like devoted my entire life to like playing at some professional level. So I was like, at that point, I just decided it was probably better to call it off and just focus on my health at that point. Which was important because getting through that fall actually just academically ended up being like pretty a stretch. I only had 3 classes and I still was like getting extensions all the time. And I remember just thinking, I just got to get through the semester and like, then I'll come back I'll like get right in the spring. And I did. And I was able to get some like medications that were helpful for sure. Mostly like just things that manage symptoms, nothing that ever like fully solved, but just manage symptoms. And then I was able to get back to school that fall again, and finally felt right at that point. So, and was working out again, like doing like pretty good runs, doing jogs and stuff like that. So, and then I actually like was able to kind of like full going, like coming around and out even further. I was, I worked at a lab. I worked at a concussion specific lab where some people like think this is like, I'm such an awful person, but we would like concuss mice. We would put mice under anesthesia, and then we would like drop like we would drop like a weight on them, and then they would get concussed. And then we would like basically like, and then we would extract the brains, and then we would study them for like protein markers of any kinds. Cause this was the Whalen lab. But what they were trying to find was like a biomarker, some sort of biomarker that could indicate when it was proper to return to play, which I think I actually haven't checked it in a while because my career has gone another way. But at that time, like it was like, I think, and it probably still is like the huge thing of concussion research. It would be huge for all sports as if researchers could find like a specific, like tangible thing in the bloodstream that you could like associate with like, oh, this is when they're ready to return to play. This is when they're not. And so that's what we were doing at that time. And I hope that the lab is like research and lab funding is such a thing. Like it's so hard to like keep a lab running off of like governmental funding. So I hope they're still going there because they were doing really cool work. But yeah, so I did concussion research for like the next year and a half, kind of just like figuring out more about it. I was just like super interested in what it was that had happened and like how it could be prevented again. And then ever since then, really like at that time when I was much younger, I was deciding between whether I wanted to be like a doctor or a writer, and I ended up like choosing writing. So my life has taken me away from like, concussions and sports and sort of that part of the world. But I still like, it's interesting to talk about it because it's like, I think I'm still passionate about it. Like, it's still like, even talking about it right now, I hope that there's been like a lot that's progressed within the last 5 years, because that would be cool. It would be beneficial just for everybody. Because I think, as I said, I think the huge thing that people don't realize is that you can be asymptomatic and go back to playing. And so whenever I hear of any like athlete like getting a concussion, being like, I feel fine, and then going back to playing, there's like a little part of me that tenses up a little bit because I'm like, how fine are you really? Like, how fine are you really?
Yeah. I would say, like, me as a competitor, I don't know if I want to admit this, but I've never been diagnosed with a concussion. Knock on wood, it stays like that. Obviously, yeah. I like you said, after you get the first one, you're more susceptible. But I would find it very hard if I've been cleared by the medical team, if I have no symptoms. I would find it very hard to take a step back and in that moment, especially, and be like, all right, let me think about the next 70 years as opposed to this next game or the next couple games. So from your experience that you had, what advice would you give? Because I know, like, when we talked during that time, I remember it was like a year where you couldn't even really go on a jog. So that was like that. I mean, you're an extreme case, but it was like a year that completely changed your life. And then, hopefully nothing down the road that long-term effects of it. But what advice would you give to someone? Doesn't even have to be a soccer player who has a concussion, and like, do you have any advice? Because it's like you said, it's so hard to give tangible advice.
Yeah, I would honestly just say, I mean, it depends on what context you're in, right? Of course, like if you're a professional athlete, then you have all the best medical like personnel in the world, and if they're saying you're okay, then ultimately like you try to take their advice. But I would say,
sorry to interrupt one thing. At Greenville this year, I mean, sorry if Greenville gets kind of found out because we had a guy who got hit in the head in the 40-something minute, was cleared, played until the 70th minute, diagnosed after the game concussion, and he came back a couple weeks later. It doesn't seem like there's any long-term effects, but on every level that's happening. And teams are trying to do like those concussion substitutions where you can swap a guy out, you can fully diagnose, but it's hard for the trainers in the middle of a game if they only have 3 minutes. The coach is yelling, get him back on. Do I have to make a sub? And when in the heat of the moment, it's so difficult.
It's super difficult. I mean, I would, on my baseline advice, and this is interesting because I don't think I've really done a lot of research on it. I would say within the past 5 or 6 years, like I've just like gone on to do other things, but I would say, like, based off of what I knew before and just my own personal experience from the past, like, wait a few weeks Like this is like a very generic rule, but like wait a few weeks past the time that you feel better. Like literally just like give it a little bit more time if you can, you know, like if you're a professional athlete, that's a decision that you have to make for yourself, honestly. If you're a collegiate athlete, even like if you're a high school athlete, these are decisions you sort of have to like make for yourself. But I would say, yeah, you know, I don't want to sound like that, like, oh my God, you know, like, be careful, kind of like super anxious, like, oh my God. But at the same time, yeah, I'd probably wait a couple weeks to say the least, because I think it would just be, I think that would be better, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a fine line, like you're mentioning, between living your life in fear, but also being smart about what you're doing. And
Totally.
and I think that's good advice, because you see so often, I think like it's a week, and sometimes I've seen people come back in less than a week, like be cleared by doctors in less than a week because they have no symptoms. Because we do like a baseline test.
Yeah,
and
I've done those too. Yeah.
Yeah. So based on those baseline tests, if you can, I don't know, like pick out letters like cat, frog, house. If you can remember the letters, then you're not concussed anymore. It's like one of those kind of tests.
Yeah.
And there's so much more that goes into it, and it's difficult. But I would advise, like you're saying, if you can take a month off, then take the month off, and that's only 1 month in hopefully a 10-15 year career when you add up college, youth, everything. So
totally.
it's an interesting topic, and maybe you'll get back into the research game so that we can really have you back on and get a deep
conversation. What's funny is this, it's funny, this conversation is almost like reinvigorating my interests. Like I'm almost like I'll probably get off the Zoom and be like, what have they found recently? Like what's the deal with biomarkers? What's the deal with like return to play protocols? I remember the last thing I found that was, because like I think the thing that's like flashy and that was generating a lot of buzz that finally caused people to take it seriously was these guys were like, you know, taking their lives, like really crazy stuff, like these football players, right? Like the CTE, the chronic traumatic encephalopathy. And there's a former football player who became like kind of the figurehead for it. I think his name is Chris Nowitzki. I don't know exactly, but he was
Pittsburgh Steelers, and they made the movie Concussion with Will Smith in it.
Yeah. Which I wrote a draft of something very similar. I had written it's that's okay though. Like I did not have Will Smith attached to the draft I wrote, so that was like the major difference. But yeah, I think it's gained a lot of traction, or like the effects of it are now really well known because of like these huge things that have happened. But that's the extreme end of things. I think the truth of like the daily reality of like a lot of people is like, you know, if you're taking like multiple hits to the head on a daily basis, whether it's through football or, you know, lacrosse or something like that, or even like multiple headers to the head with soccer.
Heading a soccer ball.
Yeah, heading a soccer ball. Like, what does that do over time, right? They call them like, I think they were called like, so traumatic brain injury is like, you know, bleeding in the brain, something nuts, a hemorrhage, right? Like a concussion was considered like a mild traumatic brain injury. So I think the term back in the day was like an RMTBI or something. It was like repetitive mild traumatic brain injuries, but those were considered even less than like an actual concussion. They were just considered like consecutive hits to the head. So I think like a lot of researchers, it honestly, like it's tough to talk about because it kind of takes like the fun out of like sports a little bit, you know, like, oh, you can't like hit as hard as you want in football practice, right? Or like I can't head the ball indiscriminately in soccer. But I think what they're just trying to figure out is just like actually like, can you, like, what is the truth behind that? They're trying to like determine that more so that, you know, people can have their health long term and then also like enjoy the game and not feel, you know, like tread upon. So it's it's a super fascinating topic. I really hope that they can come up with something like biologically that is like an indicator that determines whether or not like you can return to play. Because I think that would help. That would just help a lot of people. That'd be a cool thing.
Yeah, and I think as an athlete myself, or as a person even, the biggest thing is like risk management. Like, yeah, you can get in a car and things are dangerous. You can go on an airplane, things are dangerous. You can head a ball, you can get a concussion. Like there's so many things like risk, but it's all about risk management. You want to enjoy your life, but you want to be knowledgeable of the risks. So you can be like, all right, maybe I'm not going to work on 35 headers today at the
Right.
goalie because I know that these headers can heading a ball can do this. I don't think a header is the biggest thing. Hopefully not, because how much I do it. As a striker, I had the ball. I can't even count how many times. But if you're a football player, say these minor car accidents, that's what they're doing. They're with preseason. They're not doing as much pads. They're doing things to mitigate it. So that's just risk management. And I think you still have to enjoy life as best you can. But great topic. I feel like we could talk forever, John. About pretty much anything. Well, you might have to come back on the podcast. But before you sign off, you mentioned it a bit, just so we can bring everything together for our viewers. You mentioned a bit that you're going into writing, but just let us know what your projects are, as much as you can share. What exactly do? You live out in LA, as we know. What exactly are you doing right now?
So I'm a TV writer, and I basically my days consist of essentially like trying to write 1 hour dramatic television stories. So so I basically wake up. I mean, I write the things I'm working on right now. One, I had mentioned to you on the podcast, it's a bit dicey, but it's about an ICE officer who ends up starting to bring people into America. So he kind of flips the script on that activity. Another one about another project that I have in the works is about something called space mining, which is essentially exploring space for precious metals that are eventually going to be extinct on Earth, and how we can mine out there. So basically through my reps, I essentially work on 1 hour dramatic television scripts that I try to get sold. And then in the meantime, I also try to get staffed on other TV shows that are already in the works. So that's pretty much my daily life out here. It's interesting. It's it's almost as if soccer for me in my life now is almost my escape from writing. Writing became the other thing that I put myself into so fully. And now soccer is I'll stop working and watch EPL highlights and get ticked that Tuchel isn't playing Pulisic and be literally it's why did you come in and make them the most boring squad in the entire EPL? Come on. So that's kind of my relationship with soccer now. But yeah, that's pretty much a day in my life. And then I also I continue to I tutor and do things academically in that respect as well, which is sort of a nice connection to student athletes, because I tutor a lot of kids who are applying to colleges and looking to play sports in colleges. So it's it's still it's still in my life in tangential ways, which is really nice.
Well, it's great to see. To answer your question about Chelsea, why he's trying to make them the most boring team in the Premier League, imitation is the greatest form of flattery. The last time Chelsea won the league was with Conte playing a 3 with 2 number 10s and a striker. And he's just trying to he's playing Marcus Alonso on left wing back. He's bringing back the days. He wants to have success. He's not worrying about your entertainment. I'm sorry.
You know what's funny about that though is that no one remembers Conte won the league. Not a single person.
Well, this guy does.
Because it was boring then and it's boring now. So but I hear what you're saying. Yeah. No, I mean I just it's I don't know. I guess we'll figure out where he goes. Do you think he'll go back to Bayern? What do you think he'll do?
To Dortmund? I don't know. I feel like he's got to stick it out a little bit longer, no?
Yeah, I guess so. They have so many players.
He had a period of success. I'd like to stay in, maybe go to a Leicester or somewhere like that. And I'd like to see him staying in England, because to be honest with you, I don't watch German soccer. So German
I don't watch that much either.
I watch the EPL. I watch the Champions League. So
yeah,
I'd to see him stay so I can watch an American in the Prem. But whatever's best for his career. Hopefully he gets that. But thank you, John. This was awesome. I hope everyone enjoyed this What If series. It was I thought it was a great idea, and we're hoping to do more of them. Kind of keep it kind of running What If series, I guess, because it's such an interesting topic for me, even in my career. The what ifs, what if I had gone to Harvard? What if I had gone to Colgate? If I had not gone to college and at 18 just went overseas? There's so many what ifs in everybody's life, not just as a sports athletic career. So I think it's fascinating, and I think there's a lot of good lessons to be learned.
Well, likewise, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it. This was fun.
Awesome. Anytime to catch up with John Bryant is good time for me.
Likewise.
So until next time, everyone, thanks for listening. And I'm the athlete, and the advocate and the analyst are not here, and we are the Aristocrats.